So there we go. So we're going to talk about Kabbalah of Food, but then I'm going to speak something which is sort of timely, related to food and Kabbalah. And that is something that I've been involved a lot in the last little while, is Shiva houses and the different rituals associated with the passing of someone. But like everything in Judaism, there's always a lot of food involved. So I'm going to tell you everything food related, connected to a Shiva house or to the passing of someone, and how it connects. So we know like everything in Judaism, the many spiritual celebrations, the many spiritual rituals, but there also are food related rituals and things which are involved with food. Because Jews are real, so we always have food. You go to shul, you daven, have kiddush, and in the same way, almost also at the time when someone passes away, many things associated with food. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about is when someone passes away. Many people don't know this. In the house that they passed away, when the soul, leaves the body, and in the house that the person passes away, if there are any open bottles or jars of water, of liquid, which are open at the time, you're supposed to spill them out, supposed to pour them out, and not drink them. People don't know this. In a house, if someone passes away in the house, and there was an open bottle of water, or open glass of water, you're supposed to pour out the open liquids. I mean, this is something from Kabbalistic background. I think it's Portos and Gemara. It's quite an interesting thing with people. That's sort of food related. Open bottle of scotch. No, scotch we're not allowed to throw out. It's a good question, Kim. No, you can send the rabbi that bottle of scotch and he'll take care of it. But it's only water. It's brought down only for water. I know that scotch has a percentage of water in it, so it depends. If it's totally diluted, maybe But if a majority is scotch, that doesn't apply. It applies to water. It's a tradition. Some sort of like what happens is that there's certain impurities that are released when the body when the soul leaves the body. And how does that work in the spiritual realm? Like we know, when you go to a cemetery, when you come back, you have to wash your hands, right? You can't give, no, I'm talking about, this is at the time, good question, Helga, at the time of passing, not at the funeral, at the time of passing. So when the soul leaves the body in the house. Okay. So, and the reason is because, like I say, when the soul leaves the body, sometimes there are certain impurities which are associated with that, and it's not, God forbid, that there is something wrong with a dead person, or the dead person but death is what we define. Death is the absence of life, right? Obviously, there is a life after life, and the soul continues to live on, but that vacuum that is created when the soul leaves the body, that allows for impurity to creep in. It's almost like when you wake up in the morning, you have to wash your hands. It's called Negelwasser. And the reason why it's called Negelwasser, it's water of the nails. So you're supposed to wash your hands, because it says when you go to sleep, one experiences a 60th of death. Because when you go to sleep, you go into the subconscious state, whatever, go into a sleeping state, which is similar to that of death to some small degree. So it says that the body experiences also a little bit of the concept of death when the person goes to sleep. And therefore, when the holiness leaves, it leaves a vacuum. And in that vacuum, there are spiritual forces which are negative forces, which creep into that space. it says by Joseph was thrown into a pit by his brothers when he's being sold as a slave to Egypt. So the Torah says there was no water in the pit. It was an empty pit. So the Rashi says Ma'im Ein Boy is an abbreviation of Avol Nechashim V'Akravim Yeshba. There were snakes and scorpions. So when there's no water, there's immediately snakes and scorpions. Same thing is like with the human brain. When a person uses their mind for good things, and it's filled with good things. But when the mind is empty, when you're doing nothing, and you just have nothing to do, and you don't study anything, you don't learn anything, you don't do anything accomplishing with your mind, the mind goes off and gets into trouble. All the biggest problems in this world come from some people who need a job. They're not doing things, so they get themselves into trouble. Putin is bored, so he has war. Go learn something. Learn something. Go learn some Torah, learn some science. Go fill your head with something good. That's what happens. You don't have what to do when you're bored. Boredom breeds contempt. Boredom breeds negativity, emptiness. So when the soul, which is a piece of God, which filled the body for 70, 80, 100 years, whatever it is, right? And then it leaves the body is a receptacle for holiness, a vessel. It's just a vessel. And so it says that the opposite of holiness is absorbed. A similar thing we find also in Judaism. When a woman has a period, she's supposed to immerse herself in the mikveh thereafter. Again, it's exactly the same reason, because the woman experiences once a month when she has her period. That was a potential life that never materialized. So because that was a potential life, now when the body flushes out that life in the form of a menstruation, that leaves a vacuum, which creates an emptiness. And emptiness is not a good thing. So it has to be resustained. It has to be rebuilt. It has to be, I'm not a woman, so I don't know what the experience is, but there's always a lot of sadness from what I hear associated with it. And a lot of depression comes from that time of the month for many women. I can't tell you because I've never had it, but it's something that I from people that have confided in me, and they say that there is that when there is a loss of life that takes place, that it creates a void, and the void brings in negativity sometimes, right? So that's why the tradition is that the woman goes to the mikveh, washes herself after that, symbolically, like sort of to say, I'm not going to give in to this. We're going to resustain it. We're going to live again, good life and go on with it. So again, this whole concept of death was death. Death is not a real thing. It's when something which is great leaves, like when a righteous person leaves a city and moves out of the city, it creates a void in the space. Like when a great Rabbi leaves a place, there's a void that's left behind, and that void sometimes creates some negativity. So when a person dies, there is sometimes there could be negativity. We always find that after people go to a funeral, they need to be resustained. They're depressed because they're experiencing like a void, an absence, a loss. We call it a loss. It's very hard. It's very challenging. And many people go through depression. They go through loss of faith. Many people lose faith when they see death, especially if a young person dies. They have a lot of questions, right? So emptiness of holiness, the leaving of holiness brings in negative forces. There's a lot of that, and then in the Kabbalah, there's a lot about that. In fact, even the Kabbalah says that when you're at a funeral, it says the children should not walk behind the right behind the casket. They shouldn't be pallbearers for sure, the children, because there's certain Kabbalah says there's like a danger because of the void that's created over there. It creates negative energies, negative, forces of I wouldn't say satanic creatures, but like negative associated with death. Unfortunately, I mean, in many other religions and other cults, they've created a whole thing out of this death cult and things like that. But in Judaism, we don't follow any of that. But we do believe that there is some kind of negative energy that needs to be dealt with and cleansed thereafter. So one of the things that it says, amongst many things, that the water which is there in the room, if it's exposed, it has some kind of negative energy, and it needs to be spilled out. The next thing we find associated with food is in the time before the funeral. That means from the time a person passes away until the funeral, the tradition is that the mourners do not eat any meat or wine, drink wine. That's considered more of a joyous thing, and till the Shiva. At the Shiva, they could eat meat or wine at the Shiva. But from the time of the passing until the time of the burial, that period is called Onan. Onan, that's the name of that period, the period of the immediate period right after the demise. But before the funeral, it's customary that the mourners do not eat meat with meal, a meal with meat, or to drink wine, which is a joyous drink, celebratory kind of meal. So we don't eat that at that time. So that's another aspect where food laws about food are mentioned related to that. If we move on a little bit further, the first meal that the mourners have when they come back from the funeral, many of us know about that. That's called Sudas Havra. It's the meal of regaining strength. So when they come back from the funeral, it's brought down that the mourners do not cook for themselves. They're not allowed to do things for themselves, and it's customary that people prepare the food for the mourners. It means they don't cook yourself, and it's customary to eat at that very first meal when they come back from the cemetery. They eat foods which are round, like bagels are round breads, and also they eat hard-boiled eggs. It's always a custom to eat hard-boiled eggs, right? When mourners come back, it's like either eat it straight out of the peel or mash it, whatever. But the custom is to eat hard-boiled eggs. And why do we eat round things when we come back? Everything is very, in Judaism, everything is very, very symbolic. There's a lot of symbolism. And the reason why we eat round things when we arrive back, when one arrives back from the funeral, it's very, very sad and everything. It's a meal of comfort. It's to comfort mourners. So the round things remind us of the cycle of life. Okay, cycle of life is to remind them that yesterday things were not so good, maybe, and maybe tomorrow everything is turned. We call it, the world is like a galgal hachozer, like it's a Ferris wheel. It goes in circles, everything. You're down one day, you're up the next day. Okay, there's always a second chance. There's always at the fair they always have the Ferris wheel. One great Rebbe said that the Ferris wheel represents that those that are on the bottom will soon be on the top. Those that think that they're on the top, they're real secure. They come back to the bottom. But the same thing is when you come back from a cemetery, the family, they think that's the end of the world, that the world doesn't go on. You say, no, it's round foods. So you comfort the mourners. They bring the foods to the mourners, and they give it to them, and they prepare it for them. And in fact, it's customary also throughout the Shiva to have different foods, and the mourners really don't cook. Other people prepare for the mourners. That's where in North America there is the great mistake. People think that the mitzvah in a Shiva house is a convoluted sort of thing that's happened over the years. People think that it's the job of the mourners to prepare food for everybody else that comes to the house. Right? That's what everybody expects. It's a good breakfast. I come to the Shiva house. I get some good food, some good bagels and lax. The mourners. But it's quite the opposite. The mourners are supposed to be served. They're not supposed to serve other people. So where did this tradition come from? That the more everybody thinks you have to prepare a big spread at the Shiva house to give food. It's because over the years, what used to happen was the people would bring trays of food for the mourners. That was the Jewish tradition. That is a bona fide Jewish tradition to bring the food for the mourners. The mourners don't cook for themselves, so people were bringing entire trays of food. So the mourners would tell the people, yes, eat a little bit. Otherwise, it's going to go to the garbage. We have so much food that's coming in. So people started eating the food, and then the whole thing was turned over. And people today think that it's the job of the mourners to prepare meals for the people that come. When it's quite the opposite. It's the job of the visitors to make sure the mourners have what to eat. Right? So it's okay. It's okay. You have a little something for people to make a bracha is always good. To make a little l'chaim or something, it's fine. No problem with that. But that's not the main thing. The main thing is that you come, you bring food for the mourners, and there's still a lot of communities where that's a tradition, where they have meals, schedules for meals, and people it's a very nice thing. They make a roster for a Shiva house, and they organize it Sunday and Monday and Tuesday. Every day there should be food for the mourners. That is the custom. But the custom was not to ask the caterers to deliver the food. In the olden days, people used to actually bring themselves up a cake. Something, a home-baked food, prepared food. That's the way it was in the shtetl, I think. And it became like more the caterers, but the main focus is to bring for the mourners. There also is another tradition. I'm giving you all the traditions, everything associated with food. You're going to hit today. Maybe all your questions, the Shiva house. One of the big questions is, are you allowed to eat the Shiva house? Some people have a tradition you can't eat in the Shiva house. There's no problem with eating in the Shiva house, eating something there or having a drink or something. It's okay. It's not a problem. What is brought down a tradition that associated with food is not to take home food from the Shiva house. Okay, that is not allowed. Not like a lot of people, sometimes they take a coffee to go, from the Shiva house. That also you shouldn't take. Shouldn't take any food out of the Shiva house. Okay, again, I don't know if it's because of the bad spirits or whatever. I mean, you could eat it in the Shiva house, but to take it home, that there always was a tradition, and not to take whatever's in the Shiva house should stay in the Shiva house. You don't take it out. You're not supposed to bring it home to other families and other people, the food. By a bris, it's a mitzvah to take home something. By a bris, it's brought down that the food of the bris is sasgula. It's a big blessing to take. I remember always people used to take a bagel home for a spouse or for somebody else. They always take home some food from a bris, because a bris is brought down. It's a mitzvah. It's like a good omen, a good thing to bring home a food for the bris. But the opposite was by the Shiva houses. It's customary not to take home food. So I always have the question after the Shiva is over. Usually the family has so many trays, they don't know what to do with. They could fit so much in their fridge, in the freezer. So they ask, can they send it to an old age home or send it to a, I guess, there's also a mitzvah not to waste. You shouldn't waste food. So if you finish it in the Shiva house, it's better. If not, you could send it to people that don't know where it's coming from, for poor people. If you send it to a home or to I don't think there's a problem with that. I don't think there's anything wrong. You don't have to throw out food in the garbage, chas v'sholom, right? You know what I'm saying? Our parents would be very angry because they used to tell us how they used to starve in Poland or Russia. Remember those days we had nothing to eat. You're throwing the food in the garbage. In North America, everything after any bar mitzvah, they throw out like enough food to feed the entire country. All of Ukraine's problems could be solved for one bar mitzvah. That's the way it goes. But so I don't think there's a problem. First of all, after the Shiva is over, it might be different too. But definitely not to waste the food. I don't think you could send it. A lot of times they have like a teen shelter or something. Bring the food there. Why not? I don't think there's anything wrong or bad with that. But during the Shiva, the custom always was you don't take home the bagels to your own house. Even if they tell you take some. It's a custom is not to take home. I remember a lot of times I'm drinking a coffee and I go outside with the coffee. It reminds me, coffee you can spill out. Coffee is not a terrible thing. It's just water. It's just water. That's as far as the food in the Shiva house. Then we come. It's also customary at the end of the Shiva, when the Shiva is over, it's customary to walk around the block, which we spoke about before, to escort the soul, and the family takes a little walk. The last morning, at the seventh day in the morning, it's customary to go outside, and then they come back. And then there is actually a custom then when you come back from the Shiva to make a l'chaim. And some people have customs to say l'chaim for all 7 days. They're saying l'chaim, but the custom is at the end of the Shiva to drink a little bit l'chaim in honor of the soul. Now there is a big debate about that whole concept, and the accepted custom is that the Kabbalistic custom is to eat and drink in honor of a loved one. Many people have a tradition on the yard site that they fast on the yard site. They don't eat on the yard site. It's even brought in the code of Jewish law. But by Hasidim, there always was a custom that on the yard site, you brought something to the shul, some kibbutz, you brought some cake and a little bit of l'chaim. And in some Kabbalistic places, they call it a tikkun. Tikkun, they call it. Tikkun means correction, and that it's a correction for the soul. If everybody together says l'chaim, l'chaim is to life, right? But we say always when we have the l'chaim in the shul, we bring something to eat. Many people in general on the yard site, they bring a kiddush to shul, or they bring a shalashudas to shul, right? And they bring a little l'chaim. And always when they make the l'chaim, they say, l'chaim, the neshama should have an aliyah. By the Svardim, in fact, like on a shloshim, on the 30-day thing, they have a tradition where they put many foods out and they have every food type, and they make a bracha in honor of the soul, a different bracha. Like they'll make a mezonot and a cake, and then hadama, a haetz on a fruit, and hadama on a vegetable, and then bore pri hagafen and the wine, and shakol liyavad vara, the generic blessings for something, for some cup of water. So they'll make every blessing that's in the book, and eat something, to eat something or to drink something, and that's very much a Kabbalistic concept that you make a blessing on food. And that has a ripple effect, and it it causes a blessing for the soul. And that's the word we say. We say in Yiddish, we always to say in the shul, used to say, the neshama should have an aliyah. The soul should have an elevation. That through our mitzvahs down here, we cause the soul to have an elevation. You know, the soul is constantly climbing higher and higher and higher and closer to Hashem. And every mitzvah the soul did will determine how close it gets to God. And every time we do a mitzvah in honor of the soul down here, that causes for the soul an aliyah. So the Kabbalists say in different times and different occasions to eat something, make a bracha, and to drink something and say a bracha, and on the food you say a blessing for the soul. And so contrary to what some other people say, what are you drinking at a Shiva house? Or what are you drinking? I mean, what are you drinking at the end of the Shiva? Like, that's drinking. It's nothing to do. It's making a mockery of the soul. No, it's not. There is a bona fide tradition, custom, to eat something, to drink something, to make a kiddush, to make in honor of a loved one that passed away, and to make a bracha in their honor, and to say the neshama should have an aliyah. The soul should have an elevation through when we eat something from Hashem, and we thank God for the food. That creates a mitzvah which impacts the soul in a positive way. So when they come back from the walking around the block at the end of the shiva, it's customary to come home. We eat something, and then we say a bracha. We make a l'chaim, and we say the neshama should have an aliyah. In general, there's a big ritual involved with saying l'chaim. You know, it's people wonder, like, what is this whole thing? Saying l'chaim. You know, we know Shabbos, kiddush on wine and alcoholic beverages. You say l'chaim sometimes at an occasion, but whenever we say the l'chaim, we say there's two things that are possibly said. In some communities, they used to say l'chaim tovim u'l'shalom. When they would say l'chaim, they said for good life and for peace. That's what they would say, the bracha. L'chaim tovim u'l'shalom. And by Chabad, they always used to say, the Rebbe used to say, l'chaim v'livracha. To life and to blessing. To life, we all know from Fiddler on the Roof, everybody knows that. To life, l'chaim. You know that song. Chaim, to life. Yeah, everybody knows chaim. So when you drink some like a wine or alcoholic beverage, you make a little bracha. That's something special, say l'chaim. But the word that's used is l'chaim v'livracha. What is the word? V'livracha means for blessing. But the Rebbe used to once, it's brought down that the word livracha also can be made up of two words. Two words. Livracha is lev raka, a soft heart. That you should have, you should have a soft heart. You should have soft heart to other people, always wanting to do favors. So l'chaim v'livracha means l'chaim to life, v'livracha, and that we should all have open heart, a soft heart, a avecha heart. Yiddish, like to have a soft heart, to be kind and generous and benevolent, and so that's l'chaim v'livracha. That's the bracha that we say when we say the l'chaim. So that is another aspect of it. But the point is that there are many different food-related things. Like I said, food is involved in everything. I just went through the Shiva, and before the Shiva, and then after the Shiva. It's always associated with different aspects of eating and drinking. But it's not because because we as Jews, we celebrate our eating and drinking. We don't look at the physical world as being a threat. We don't look at it as being something which is divorced of godliness, but to the contrary, we try to bring holiness and light in the food that we eat. And so throughout the Shiva, we're eating at the Shiva house, we make brachas at the Shiva house, we say blessing for the soul, and this is helpful for the neshama too. And even on a yard site, there's an Indian to bring up l'chaim, the shul, to make a bracha in honor of a loved one. Okay, so that was today's shiur on food, the Kabbalah of snacks in the Shiva house. This is what that is, and Shem should bless everyone. We should only make brachas at bar mitzvahs and weddings. And anybody have any questions related?
What's the significance of the hard-boiled eggs?
So I said the hard-boiled eggs because I said everything is round that you're supposed to eat when you come back. Whenever I say round, you always go use your fingers like this, right? It has to be round, right? It has to be round and circular. So we eat bagels, we eat hard-boiled eggs to show us the cycle of
life. Yes.
Cycle, like I said before, like the Ferris wheel, right? You might be down one day, but you're up the next day. It's things.
The egg is actually oval. Could be termed as oval, not round.
Okay, come on, give me a break already. It's symbolism. You don't ask so many questions, my friend.
Thank you, Rabbi. Shabbat shalom to everybody.
Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom. Anybody else any questions?
Rabbi, when somebody passes away in the hospital, is there a difference between pouring the water out and so on?
Only whatever's in the room. I wouldn't go around the whole hospital and pour out all the water. You could be killing some people. Go doing that. But what's ever in the room? If you see a cup of water, I'd pour it out. Definitely not to drink. Definitely not to drink it. Let's put it that way. Whatever's left inside it. Shouldn't drink.
Thank you.
Rabbi, one quick question.
Yeah.
When Lester Fix passed away, I was at the house when they came to take his body.
Right.
They took him off the bed and put him on the floor. Before they took him, why did they do that?
That's like a private thing that only the Chevra Kaddish knows about.
Okay.
You weren't supposed to see that.
Okay.
And it's something that comes from Europe. It's brought down that the body, before you take it out in the room, you're supposed to right after the person passes away, you put them down on the ground, because it's like earth to earth kind of thing. So you put them on the earth a little bit, and then afterward you take them to wherever you have to take them. That's that used to be the custom. They used to wrap them in a sheet, put them on the floor, in a shtetl like that, and with the feet facing to the doorway, until the body is removed. But today,
exactly what they did.
Yeah. Okay. I guess they know what they're doing.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. All the best to everybody.
Thank you so much. Wonderful class.
Okay. Thank you. Welcome. All the best. Bye. Bye.